Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, on April 29th of this year, Louisiana's House Republican delegation wrote a letter to Senator Landrieu, as well as myself, urging us to represent a majority of Louisianians' opinion and oppose the nomination of Sylvia Burwell to become HHS Secretary unless significant changes were made to the path we're on regarding the implementation of Obamacare. They asked us to oppose Ms. Burwell's nomination until an agreement is reached to provide for the equitable treatment and protection of all Americans under Obamacare, and until the administration, including Ms. Burwell, committed not to pick and choose what parts of the law they would implement, not to pick and choose what deadlines they would meet, what deadlines they would ignore, not to pick and choose what mandates they would enforce, like the individual mandate, what mandates they would ignore, like the employer mandate. This is that letter dated April 29th, and I ask unanimous consent that it be made a part of the record.
Without objection.
Well, I agreed with that sentiment. I agree with those concerns. So I responded shortly thereafter in a letter dated May 19th that I would oppose Ms. Burwell's nomination because of those concerns, because there is no evidence that Ms. Burwell would put an end to any of that, would put an end to the administration's common practice of creating special rules for big business, special rules for Washington insiders, for not simply following the law, not simply implementing the law, but picking and choosing, doing parts of the law it liked, delaying parts of the law when it was politically convenient. The Senate's consideration of Ms. Burwell's nomination to become Secretary of HHS invited a conversation to discuss all of that, to discuss her responsibilities for the full, impartial, fair, legal implementation of Obamacare. I paid attention very much to that discussion. I was hopeful about it. Unfortunately, it was disappointing in my view in terms of her responses. During the nomination process, Ms. Burwell was asked on a number of occasions how she will continue to implement and enforce various aspects of Obamacare. Again, these concerns obviously arose because of the administration's decisions to make more than 20 unilateral changes to the law as written, to timing, applicability of various provisions. One of these decisions that was particularly highlighted in my House colleague's letter of April 29th was to give big business relief from the employer mandate. While there is no relief for individuals, millions will face a steep penalty, face it right now, under the individual mandate. Not only did Ms. Burwell punt to the Treasury Department, her response failed to even acknowledge that the administration has failed to execute the law as written because the law is broken. American people have really had enough of the administration passing blame to certain federal agencies or to bureaucrats or to Congress or to political parties. They've had enough of the blame game. They've had enough of finger pointing. What I find even more hypocritical in this regard is that the administration worked with many members of Congress behind closed doors to give Congress and Washington insiders special treatment under Obamacare, to give them a way to avoid higher costs and lower quality care, the way many Americans are suffering from that. So I'll also oppose Ms. Burwell's nomination until the American people get the same relief from Obamacare as the Washington elite, as the Washington exemption from Obamacare, as the congressional subsidy. To date, at least 4.7 million Americans, including at least 92,000 Louisianians, have had their health insurance plans canceled as a result of the mandates of the law. Many of these folks were then dealt with the choice of going without health insurance or taking the gamble of purchasing an expensive plan on the government-run Obamacare exchange. Again, the law as written was intended to make every member of Congress and our staff walk in those same shoes. But the administration, again, was fast and loose with the law, created a special rule contrary to statute. Ms. Burwell was part of that administration, creating a special exemption, a special subsidy, a special rule not found in the statute. So in contrast to that experience of many, many Louisianians, millions of Americans, members of Congress and congressional staff can get out of that mandate of Obamacare. Many congressional staff have been exempted from having to go to the exchange, which is clearly a requirement under the statute. And members of Congress and staff who do go to the exchange get a huge taxpayer-funded subsidy, nowhere in the statute, and nowhere available to any other American at the same income level. For all of these reasons, because of this disparate treatment, because of ignoring the law, because of amending the law over and over by administrative fiat, I have to oppose Ms. Burwell's nomination. She gave no indication in any of her testimony, in any discussions leading up to this confirmation vote, that she would change any of that. And it's pretty clear she will not. So I will oppose the nomination. Again, I would also ask to submit for the record my May 19th response to Louisiana House members regarding their letter. And I ask that be made part of the record.
Without objection.
If Ms. Burwell is passed by the Senate as Secretary of HHS, I urge her to take heed of these calls. We have a law before us. We need to follow the law, not in some cases, in all cases, not implement here but not there, not give some folks special treatment and special exemptions not found under the statute, but implement the law as written. That will be her responsibility as much as anyone in the administration. I urge her to be a true leader in the administration to start doing that in an appropriate legal way. Thank you, Mr. President, and I suggest the absence of